Rebecca Smith is the global head of child protection at Save the Children. It's an organization working to protect children in conflict zones around the world. Rebecca, good morning. Thank you for coming on, and thank you for everything you and your organization does.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Your team at Save the Children works with kids in some of the world's most difficult conflict zones. As tensions continue to escalate in the Middle East, first I want to ask what your organization does on the ground to support and protect young children.
So particularly for young children, what we do is we try and establish a routine as much as possible, trying to get children to play, to be in a safe place, to have the ability to interact with other children, and setting up that routine from the start is really important. We also work very closely with parents and trying to come up with a safety plan together so that they know what they can do if they're separated from a child, if they have a missing child, and how they can comfort their children.
While your organization is helping children in conflict zones, events like this can also have an impact on kids here in the U.S. I showed that video of that poor mother reassuring her child in Iran. We're 2 weeks into this conflict. The headlines, the images are everywhere. When children come to their parents with questions about war, what's the best way to start that conversation? I understand it's going to be age appropriate, but how do you even open up the dialogue?
I think it's trying to let your child lead the conversation a little bit. So really understanding what their concerns are and also what they've seen. I think with social media and other news sources now, your child might have been exposed to something that you don't even know about. So really ask them what they already know. Reassure them that you are there to help and that you're supporting them. Younger children often just want reassurance. Older children want to know what they can do and really understand a little bit more about what's happening. So I think getting older children to also recognize how to challenge whether or not a source of information is accurate or not, trying to get information from multiple sources, and really seeing how they can limit exposure, which is disturbing. Some children will find it much more disturbing than others. And then as parents also to think about, is your child acting differently? Are they sleeping a lot more or a lot less? Are they worried about being separated from you? How can you recognize when your child does need more help?
From your experience, Rebecca, how aware are children of what's happening around them? What are they picking up that we as parents just don't realize?
I think they're picking up the suffering of other children. And I think that sometimes we as parents are focusing on the politics, whereas children are really picking up on how this is impacting other children. And I think that that's something that we need to continue to encourage that empathy. And also that sense of, I think, teenagers or older children are also feeling helpless in a way. And how do we empower people to really realize that everyone does have something they could do, even if it's being a better citizen on the playground, or how do you help other people in your own community? What is it that you can do in this horrible situation?
And I think you're right. The lesson of empathy is so important. I know parents, a few parents, friends even, think the best approach is simply not to bring it up. But I'm sure avoiding the topic can make a child feel even more confused, maybe even scared. Why is it so important to have these conversations?
Well, I think that children often imagine things that are even worse than what they think is possible. And what you want to is encourage that communication, because you'd rather they come to you than come to someone else that's giving them inaccurate information. And I think as parents, you feel like you want to protect a child, but allowing them to feel emotions and to recognize that there aren't good or bad emotions. There are just emotions that we need to deal with, and is a very healthy way of processing stressful situations.
My team just pulled up an interesting statistic that almost 50% of kids have some kind of PTSD from the images that we're seeing. What signs should parents watch for that their child might be struggling with these images of war? How do they reassure their children that they are safe?
I think it's also, sometimes children have a hard sense of seeing what's there in immediate danger and what is far away, especially when some of the images seem so close to home. So also reassuring them in their own safety and what they would do if they are in an unsafe situation. really thinking about, trouble with sleep, like I said before, worry, changes in mood, changes in eating habits. You're looking for changes in how your child is normally behaving, and then addressing those issues, trying to think about what would help you to feel safer. What are the things that you're most worried about? How are we going to plan around that? And that's what we're doing with children all over the world, is really thinking about how do we make a plan together so that you feel and are safe, and that I feel and am safe as well.
Rebecca, I'm running out of time, but I want to get this question in. It's almost impossible to avoid the images that we're seeing. Do you think parents should limit social media?
I think it really depends on your child and how your child is being impacted, and also to recognize that even if you limit it, doesn't mean that they won't have access to it from somebody else's device or from other places. So I think just trying to make sure that you are having those open conversations with your child is the best way forward.
Rebecca Smith, again, thank you for your time. Thank you for that great advice and everything that you and your organization are doing. Thank you again.